Yeah.
You've recorded how many minutes? 6 minutes.
Yeah.
You're a turd.
Why's that?
What did I say 6 minutes ago?
I'm going to be honest. I'm not nearly half as drunk as you are. And I don't know.
Simon's in a good spot.
Very happy.
It's a good opportunity to say welcome back. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Appalachistani. I think that's going to be the name of this show. It's a good opportunity to sit down and catch up with old friends on this wonderful Labor Day weekend. We got to come up and hang out at Crater Lake with our buddy Smokey the Appalachistani right here.
Yo.
Good to see you again. Now we're up here at his homestead doing a show, because why not, when you get, multiple, I guess, extremists who just want to be left alone sitting around congregated in one area. The one thing you want to do, I guess, is throw out a podcast. And we got Simon tripped pretty good here today. I don't really understand where it went wrong for him, but while I got him in a precarious situation here, I kind of wanted to dive into something we started the last episode off on, which was basically this entire situation with my photograph of my undercarriage that was shared everywhere. Now, it has come to my attention that, yes, Heather, in fact, came across the photo and made a funny comment about it and said, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to send this to Billy." And it was you who looked at her and said, "No, you post that on the meme farm right now."
Oh, that is a shocking. What an absolute fabrication. I'm horrified my wife would throw me under the bus. But
your wife didn't say anything.
It was straight up, that's the facts, Jack.
So, no, and she didn't tell me. It wasn't her either.
Well, listen, under the current legal system, I would like to profess the fact that I cannot testify against my wife. But what's clearly happened here is a fabrication of the truth, my lord.
Well, your wife just admitted to it without, without provocation. I didn't even press her or anything. All I said was that I heard. She wasn't even the one who told me. She just outed the both of you. I was curious, here I was the whole time thinking, man, why would Heather do such a thing to me? Now I'm thinking about revenge, and then come to find out it was you all along who made the initial.
Oh, that's an absolute miscarriage of truth.
I would put it that way.
Thank you very much, my sweet.
Oh, yes, go ahead, do it.
Because
I detest.
It's the advisement, but that's a partnership.
Well, then both of you are guilty, and I'll eventually at some point.
My name is on it. I will take it. I am the winner of the meme farm. Thank you. Good night. I will see you at my awards dinner for the 2023.
Yeah, it's definitely in for the award.
Simon, you understand that this does mean war. This does mean war. Now that I got you on record, and I've got the both of you admitting to the treason. I mean, we're supposed to stick together on things.
I believe the appropriate phrase here is that extremism in defense of liberty is no treason.
Touche. I'll support that.
Fergus. Sorry.
Yes. In fact, I'll second it as well. Motion carried.
So, appreciate you letting us come up here and spend some time at your homestead. I know we've talked about this on the show before. You've been on multiple times. If anybody doesn't remember, go back and check out our last episode with Spike Cohen. He joined us there with Henry Long. We've had a couple of shows there before, one on Patreon as well. So, we've had a chance to hook up and talk quite a bit, and we're finally getting to lay eyes on this place. And I got to say, it's very defendable.
It's a work in progress, but I love it up here.
Everybody should be so lucky. I don't quite think people can grasp. We were coming down the road here and it was blowing their minds, but this is just back in the hollers. This is somewhere that everybody should.
This is going to be, hard work.
It is hard work.
It's going to be hard. It will continue to be hard work. But the labors you put, it's a labor of love, right?
Absolutely. If I lost, or not if I lost my job, that would kind of suck. But if I was able to retire today and spend the rest of my time just on my own property, working, for myself, turning this thing into the eventual vision that we have for it, I would not regret a single moment of that.
That's how I view it.
No, you got everything you need up through here.
And my advice to you would be, with the income that you have now, is to reinvest everything into making this a more manageable project
Oh yeah.
when that income doesn't exist.
So we recently just got a 4-wheeler, a little Yamaha Big Berry TV, and until that moment, as you can see all the trees I dropped 14 in the spring, and I'd have to cut them to little 4 foot lengths and carry them one by one down the hill. And then we've had it for 3 weeks now, I want to say. And the first day I got it up there, I wrapped 2 8-foot sections together with a bunch of brush, brought it down. That's all I did all day long, and it took me a day to do what would have taken a month. So a little bit goes further, and definitely allows me to, it's the next step of what I can do.
Yeah, I'm not saying anything about clearing land is easy. It can be easy if you throw money at it.
Yeah,
but that's not the object, right? My
dad is learning that in North Florida right now. Yeah. He bought 40 acres of land, and it's all old. Sorry, he's gonna knock this board off. You know it. He bought 40 acres of land that was old slash pine for a paper mill, and he was looking at it, and he was like, "All right, He bought a skid steer for himself. He's got a little bit of money, I should say, if you're able to afford one. He started clearing the trees one by one, and then was like, well, I'm going to need to rent an excavator to do it, and didn't have a big enough machine. Now he's had to pay someone and charged $5,000 an acre to do it. And,
wow.
And even on top of that, it's still been the past 4 months. Yeah, and that's
huge
flat cost. North Florida like land. This is a 250-foot incline mountain that I have.
Yeah, and they charge you up the you-know-what for it.
Oh, yeah.
So it's all about, the cost of timber that you can recoup versus the cost of stump removal and genuine clearing. Yeah. And it normally balances out as a dead even, which kind of sucks. Because you only get in your lifetime one chance at taking that hit to get the income to be able to do it. From that point on, you've got, 30 to 40 years of mature tree growth. But why would you clear it in the first place? You're not looking to do that. But you know what I mean? It's a one-hit deal.
Yeah. So my goal eventually is you see a lot of tall pine here that I have, and I want to get rid of all the crappy pine and replace it with either fruit-bearing trees or just native trees, especially if they ever come out with that blight-resistant chestnut tree. I would love to reseed, the land here. I would never see it look like it did for our ancestors, but maybe my children's children. So
and yeah, we
got a black walnut right there that I love.
With the and when it comes to land clearing and certain rules behind that, what their bare minimum is to replace it with some form of pine.
Yeah,
right. That maybe they get a load of guys in. They go and plant whatever it is. How many plants?
It's the cheapest that they can also get.
Exactly. So, but they've been seen to do the job, right? So there it is. Boom, boom, boom. You've got a 1-day labour force that's coming in, planting the garbage, and it's a fir tree of some description.
We might have a gunshot or two in a
and that may not.
Second,
well, that's okay. and that to me isn't really doing the environment. And please don't mistake me for one of these crackpot environmentalists.
Never.
But to say the pine tree to replacing mature wood, deciduous, with very straight lines of pine actually doesn't do the environment any good.
And it's that softwood too that you
and it's
it grows tall, straight, and falls over and takes out houses and
will still take 20 years to mature to become a cash crop. And it's actually a very profitable cash crop.
Yeah.
If you do all the studies behind fir trees and how that math works. But you're still putting them in as I'm going to clear the land, but now you have to replace them with cheapest possible logs and fir trees.
So the reason that there's pine here specifically, though, is how I was pointed out, the land that's directly behind me, it's about 600 acres, and it's owned by the guy that owns the Stewart sawmill. So that's all his land that he's clear cut it 3 times, I want to say, grows it back, and it's not even listed under his company, it's under his personal land. So best I can figure is he's got a couple of access roads through there. He lets it grow up, and then, oh, hey, I have, my own personal stock of wood I can plant in this little bowl that we're sitting in. I made the mistake of letting the dog drag me through it this past winter, and it's clearly this was a landing, and they were dragging all the lumber up the hill because there's a bunch of rotting, fallen wood back there right now. So, I mean, I get it. He probably cleared this land back in the 70s or something when this house and the one on the other side of the hill was built, and then they just did the pine thing, and no one cared since then, or until me, and now I'm sitting here going, oh, this is wonderful.
That makes sense from what I'm looking at with a very, very small element of mature growth, some big pines, but you can see it's being cut extensively at some point in time.
I think we were talking about this earlier, or it might have been somebody else at the cookout, that everyone always talks about, oh, if I had a time machine, I'd go back in time. I'd bet on this team in the Super Bowl. All I'd want to do going back in time is just see the primordial forests of like this part of Virginia back in the late 1700s. So, the forests that were untouched.
Yeah. With a canopy, and a minimal undergrowth to a degree. That would be awesome.
It would. I think it'd be beautiful because if I'm not mistaken, and I might be, I'm pretty certain this area of Virginia had redwood trees at one point growing in it.
I believe it.
You had wild buffalo herds here.
Yeah.
We're 15, 20 minutes from Buffalo Mountain.
Yeah.
But maybe one day I'll get back to that. It'd be kind of cool, but who knows? Because as you guys know, in Franklin County, every government wants to think that they're a real estate developer all of a sudden, and we'll hold on to this land. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't know how they've got into that concept of commercial realty development. I mean, that's a very it's a very niche area to exploit.
Yeah,
and I don't think we have the professionalism within county or town to exploit that efficiently whilst they're using taxpayer money to do it. So, hey,
they need our taxpayer dollars to entice the, next big multi-billion-dollar industry that's going to bring in 1,300 jobs, but 1,200 of them are already employed by the company coming from California, so that they can tax them and raise all our property tax. It's that vicious cycle I've been starting to notice. It's very Floyd County
harsh.
Isn't doing it so much, but Montgomery County, especially because of Virginia Tech, I've been seeing that a lot. So.
Yeah, when you're creating, I think, a tax base income, you've got to do it with the current residents in mind, and it has to be to their advantage and with their approval.
Yeah.
So this is where so much of that development, I think, falls foul of that thought process. And you're dealing with, and that opens the door for some nefarious acts.
No, government being shady.
Oh,
I've never heard that.
No, neither have I.
They have our best interest in heart, Simon.
No,
never. It's never their underlying.
You devil's advocate, you. But so I have issues. I have issues there, and any educated person can probably figure that out. That take any political bias out of it, and just say, where's the money coming from? Where's the thought process? Where's the professionalism? And is that actually in your mandate to do it?
Right.
And that's a key fact. Most of it isn't.
Well, I agree with that, because you can even bump that up to the federal level, like all the alphabet agencies. Like the only thing that the ATF is legally allowed to do is dissolve itself. Constitutionally, that's the only thing they're allowed.
Well, they have already proven themselves as a rogue agency. By the way, we're already on the FBI hit list for whatever reason.
You didn't wave at them at the lake earlier today? I'm sure that they were sitting in that weird surveillance van that kept driving by with the park logo on it. And then that one ranger kept going by awful. My wife kept pointing him out to me. I'm like, yeah, he's probably like,
Yeah.
There they are.
Yeah,
Found them.
They got a memo ahead of time. Our guys, like
They probably got a meme.
Well, yeah. When we click 10,000 on Facebook, it automatically triggers you into every watch list.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure the same thing for Instagram and X or whatever, which everybody that doesn't know, Simon is on X, Twitter now, whatever you want to call it, at Simon on Tap. And we're going to start getting them on there a little bit more often up there in the holler and trying to get on those spaces. I think I would really like to get us, all three of us sitting here, and then Spike and Chip and maybe a couple other people, and really sit down and talk about like what a free state of Appalachia really looks like. Like talk the logistics of it, talk about, how the flow of capitalism comes in and out. Because we obviously, when you get down to the brass tacks, obviously we could probably survive on our own. We could make it up here without all the necessities, blankets in the winter, we have firewood, whatever the case. When shit hits the fan, we're good. That being said, we also have to look at it as we are in a modern day time. So what's the best way to also keep our cities flowing so the commerce can run through there and then everything else can be, up to par. So there's a lot of good discussions to be had and what things look like. I think, you think about splitting up, and out west, how does that look? If the water's coming out of Colorado through Nevada, and all of a sudden they're like, we're not sending that to LA anymore. Well, now you're talking about 7 or 8 million people without water in a matter of days. What happens now? Well, does California send its troops in Nevada and Colorado and open up that waterway? I mean,
wars have been fought over salt as well in the course of history. I mean, it's the second. I made a post on X the other day, and it was that the union is the illusion of a happy marriage in a house full of animosity. The states aren't united, in my opinion, except at the threat of the barrel of a gun. There's a very famous quote that I always keep in my back pocket. It's from John Quincy Adams, and he said, the founding of the country, that if I would rather see the citizens of a disunited states part in friendship than be held together through contrition. And I believe in that a lot. I don't want, if we balkanize tomorrow, let's say even just along the current state lines that we have, that doesn't mean that, oh, hey, the West Virginians over there are now my enemy just because we're not underneath the magic sky cloth that's waving. I'm going to be like, hey, you've got a little bit more coal than I have. I've got, X, Y, and Z product over here. We've got tobacco in Virginia. Why don't we work out a great trade here? Hey, we both share the New River. That's a wonderful causeway for commerce that we can push. Just because we don't agree with the same, immediate government doesn't mean that we're going to be launching the nukes tomorrow. If that's the case, then why does France exist? Why does, anything in Europe exist? Sure, they had thousands of years of getting to this point.
Well, they've been at conflict for centuries and will continue to do so, whether it's under physical threat or economic threat. And I think the euro is going to be part of that.
Oh, yeah.
Structure of failure, because to a certain extent, all currencies have actually been weaponized, whether we're aware of it or not.
Oh, absolutely.
So
I'll show you guys in a little bit, but I have a couple of the Appalachian 1 ounce silver rounds that my buddy made that we're trying to sell.
Yeah, I wanted to get a few of those.
We'll chat after, definitely. But he went out. He contacted a mint. He actually owns the die. He did, I think, 500 coins for the first batch. And he physically owns the die. So if he decides he wants to make another 500 or so, he can just contact them as long as he has the money, which he's filthy rich. But that starts building a potential currency for our own area.
Well, I think you almost have to revert back to, in my mind, in an ideal world, revert back to a gold standard.
Absolutely.
Which, under the current political climate is actually virtually impossible.
Mm-hmm.
It would be cataclysmic economically. But as a necessary correction, I don't have an issue with backing a currency with a commodity of value. And promissory notes, which is what currency is, then actually have value. So, where do you go from there? Is it right or wrong to have silver, gold, whatever commodity it is, ingots of copper, whatever
you
it
have
may
people
be.
in the South Pacific that they used to use rocks as their currency, and no one physically kept the rock. It was kept in a central location, but there was a verbal agreement. Hey, I'll give you my rock for X, Y, and Z issue. Or you have people that use seashells throughout history as currencies. Whatever somebody finds, So
the Bitcoin issue actually is and as complex as it is, when you think about it, it has it's defined by how many Bitcoins are out there.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're trading them, mining them, whatever it is you do, it's finite.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what we have now, because we've broken away from any gold standard, anything that associates with wealth that is transferable other than a promissory note is gone.
We went from a finite currency to an infinite currency.
Absolutely,
that's why we get taxed so much. That's how they, the more money they print, they have to tax us. That way it keeps the inflation.
Which is interesting,
ones and zeros.
They can just print
Keep
whatever
printing.
they want, so why do we have to pay taxes? I mean, we've already proven that. What was it
For
when
what
COVID
purpose?
started? That was 2/3 of the currency in circulation was only printed after the COVID
am
emergency
I
started?
just transferring ones and zeros digitally?
Mm-hmm.
Which is exactly what it is, which has absolutely no value other than the person that professes to say, I am paying you $15 an hour.
Well, it's all about confidence.
Have you seen the photo of the back of the Monopoly board for the rules of how the bank works? So,
don't make me laugh.
I'm going to try and look it up real quick. It's oh Lord, continue while I look this up.
Well, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier. I know when we have discussions about, a free state of Appalachia or the state of Jefferson or some of these places breaking apart, how are we going to continue to persist as a union when California is ignoring federal rules and letting in immigrants from all over the place, thus enhancing their number of votes essentially for for president when they all come together?
Yeah, the House of Representatives, the numbers your state has based off of your population.
Exactly. So they're getting
it's not legal citizen population. It's just population. So they count them in the census.
And they're getting more electoral votes than Texas. Well, Texas is like, well, wait a minute now. If they're not following the rules, then, it goes back to abortion as well. If it's completely legal in Colorado, but it's completely banned in Oklahoma, and somebody goes across the border. I mean, all these issues are something to really think about. There's a lot to it that we just kind of surface level.
How much of it is just a bloody smokescreen?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's just really, is this how you're going to do it to us?
So the monopoly, I found it. It's when the bank runs out of money. Some players think the bank is bankrupt if it runs out of money. The bank never goes bankrupt. To continue playing, use slips of paper to keep track of each player's banking transactions until the bank has enough paper money to operate again. The bank may also issue new money on slips of ordinary paper. Rule number 4 of Monopoly, created in 1900 and something.
Well, it's funny you should say that because as a rugby player, you play on the lines of cheating throughout the game.
Mm-hmm.
So you're looking to take advantage of every chink.
I have no idea how rugby's played, so I'm just going to take everything you say as gospel right now.
To a certain extent, you're playing to the referee, and if you know, you know. So the analogy with that and banking and monopoly, it's a funny story because it's kind of translates from my rugby mindset to how I'm going to win at a game of Monopoly. And the way to win at a game of Monopoly, I've got to tell you, is to, when you host a game of Monopoly, make sure you have 2 sets.
Yeah.
And I'm going to leave it. And you don't necessarily have to be the banker.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just saying the availability of 2 sets of funds. It's the same bullshit that we live through. Just like you can't see behind the curtain. I've actually got double bank, and I'm not the bank. You know what I mean?
I saw a photo today.
I'm on fire.
We didn't know if he was going to be capable like 30 minutes ago.
He's doing real well.
He's having a conversation. I told him he would bounce back. He wasn't.
On fire.
an image I saw this morning.
I was hoping some of the rest of the guys would come around here since it, such
a. Yeah, you can invite them around, Drops. No. Yeah.
Anybody who wants to jump, I mean, because we, the whole point of
we're
today,
winging it now.
Well, the whole point of today is, we got invited up to a big cookout up here at Clayton Lake, and there was a lot of like-minded individuals. I guess the liberal progressives would call us right-wing extremists, although most of us are libertarians in the middle when it comes politically speaking. I guess the most extreme thing is maybe somebody didn't bring macaroni salad, enough of it today or something like that.
There was a big fight over that.
Yeah, it come to brawls, but we have all these people that come hang out, and it's like-minded, and it kind of it pushes, number one, a lot of the beliefs that you hold, and number two, for the beliefs we hold about community, bringing people together. Now, we all have our respective communities that we're fighting for, that we support, but today was a great opportunity to bring multiple people around from different communities and bring their ideas together and try and spread them back out. I think you've done a wonderful thing. It was awesome to be here for the first one,
Yeah, for sure.
Glad to be invited to it.
There was a very the most often used word right now. It was a very diverse cross section that shared very similar beliefs, and without being prejudiced. What a concept! What a concept without being prejudiced. How does that happen? Discourse.
That's exactly what it is. Two of my friends that are here, that maybe we can entice them on later on. They're the people I've always given the most credit to for making me into a libertarian and an anarchist. Is I used to be a good little GOP lockstep Republican, and I was like 15, 16. They were in college, and this is a while ago, obviously. And we were talking about something with Iraq or Afghanistan, and I made some brash bootlicker comment we should just kick in everyone's door there and look for all the terrorists, drag them out of their houses, and they're just like, why? And I'd answer it, and then they'd just respond with, why? And they just kept asking why, to the point that it got me to change my entire perspective of the world. So we've been drinking with them today. We'll drink a little bit more with them tonight, and hopefully.
Well, there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. I know there's such a negative connotation to MAGA, and what I try to explain to people, I'm like, most of the MAGA people in this world are people who are just disenfranchised with the status quo. And they are people who looked at what was in front of them and said, you know what, I'm sick and tired of the establishment, whether it be Democrat or Republican. So if anything else, that's what Donald Trump has given us. He has given us the ability to all compromise and understand. And that's where I think the libertarians miss the mark so much. They're so eager to get out there and try and get in urban areas, and they're so eager to get out here and get to the urban sprawl and do their dinners and their meetings and talk about a libertarian society. But honestly, the most libertarian people in the world are right here in the mountains. They just don't know it. And they don't vote it because it's usually not an opportunity for them, and they don't have time to worry about it. You come reach these people and say, hey, man, there's a third option right here. Get these people in here, and we'll stop taxing you to death. We'll stop sending people up on your hollers and messing with you once they figure that out. But instead, they're aiming at the needle in the haystack.
I tell you what, Smokey, you said something that was almost earth shattering, in that you were very conservative in your mindset, and but you had come away from that angle to a more libertarian perspective, and that's coming from a conservative mindset. So do we not think that some of and I use the word democratic correctly.
Yeah, not the progressives.
Not the progressives, because they're done. We know where they are, and there's no arguing there whatsoever. They are the modern day fascists.
Yes, absolutely.
Whichever way you cut it. But the guys that were the old, blue dog Democrats, actually would take much for them to make the same step that you have.
Right. Well, that's what Trump is
with libertarians.
Essentially, Trump
but he still had to put his tag behind.
Yeah.
And the argument from both sides has always been, you can't vote for a third party. And when I say a third party, independent isn't a third party.
Right.
Right. So let's be very clear about that. But if you vote for a third party, you're giving the vote to, depending upon the perspective, which is 180 degrees reverse, is you're giving the vote to the Republicans, or you're giving the vote to the Democrats, progressives. Anyway, and that argument they both play so that an establishment of a reputable third party cannot happen. So the independent angle, hopefully, we shoot down. And say if the Libertarian Party was the third party, and I hope it is for all the right reasons, is that they can establish that difference and have a presence in national politics.
I think we're getting ready to have a there we go.
There we
There
go.
we go. I think we're getting ready to have a there we go.
That sounds like a 12 gauge.
It's beautiful. And I see your wife over there right in the mix of it, probably instructed them on how to properly stand. Well, that's not a good stance.
She'll do it too.
I mean, this is a lot like, this is,
She will do it too.
up here on this is essentially, this is a lot like our show up here with you and Spike. You got chickens running around, animals, people, firearms and stuff. And when his mind was blown, he's like, this is beautiful what you guys got going on up here.
This is how we do it because we can.
I
He
think
said,
my
y'all are
favorite
so
thing.
different. You're so much different than nobody else is doing what we're doing.
Exactly. I think my favorite thing that he said about that whole episode was like, I talk about all this wonderful stuff while you guys are physically living it out there. And kind of to what you were saying where, the parties previously, they've always wanted to like look at the urban settings of cities. They want to, we could take New York, we could take Roanoke. Like, no, we're flyover country here. Appalachia's been eyed by the Republican and Democratic Party like a side of beef for 350 years at this point. Like, our people are here. Let's focus on our people, not the city people first. It's that whole argument. You can't help your neighbor if your house is on fire. Well, our house has been falling down since the 40s.
So what you're actually saying is to disassociate yourself from that political input where we are now.
Right.
And say, you know what? It doesn't, but it does affect you, but it doesn't affect you. And the conflict of that argument.
Yeah.
But then to swing round and look even closer inward to say, you know what? I'd sooner represent locally in my community than anything else. And that's the only change that you as an individual can probably make. Double tap.
Yeah.
Make this apparent one more time that as all 5 guys are over there all decked out firing off, and Simon's wife is like below all of them, like the only one without ear protection, and probably definitely critiquing their stances and their firing ability. She's got no problem whatsoever.
She went through a number of training sessions with MVT, which is a British paratrooper who instructs the use of firearms, in particular the AR platform.
Nice.
He's in Romney, West Virginia.
Okay.
We are associated with a number of their alumni.
Nice.
And being a safe range master is the trick. And watch out, guys.
The IRS would probably. Well, actually, no, I don't want them to actually have any of that. But
hold that thought real quick. Because while we're talking about firearms, real quick, a good opportunity to shout out Safe Side Tactical over there in Roanoke.
Oh, absolutely.
Definitely.
If you're listening to this show and you're wanting an indoor range, you're wanting somewhere to go buy some firearms, some ammunition, go by there, give them your money, your support. They do. They fight the machine as well. I know they really got in Northam's crawl back in 2020, but they're really, really good people. And for our Spike Cohen show, they sent some of their best up there to manage our range, and we're in the process right now of getting them on the show because I want an entire show with them, another Shall Not Be Infringed episode like we did at the Pig River Precision
that was super
tournament. That's what you need to come to if they can sit back down and do that. But big shout out to those guys. I want to get them on the show at some point in time and talk about everything they do because
they turned up with some really interesting firearms that allowed people that hadn't experienced full auto
Yeah.
I
love the video of you with the MP5 where you're like, that's fucking sexy.
And it was.
Well, and those guys too, the good thing about them is they are located in the middle of downtown Roanoke. So, I know we sit here and a lot of people talk, but look, inner city people, I want you all to take your street corners back. I want you to stop living in fear from, drug dealers and pimps and assholes who are going up and down your street shooting all the, go out there, get your Second Amendment right. Go, it's 5 blocks away from your house, 6 blocks, 10 blocks. It's right there in downtown Roanoke. Go there, learn how to fire if you haven't done it, and protect yourself, because, I mean, I want people in inner cities to be armed. I want people out in the country to be armed. I want a polite society, a well-armed society, polite society. And people are going to call you gun nut, sign on that. But that's absolutely ridiculous.
I
It's
agree with you. One of my favorite sayings is the reason I carry a handgun is because a cop is too heavy. You be your own first responder. Don't rely on.
Well, you have that
when the seconds count, cops are minutes away.
Exactly.
And
here they're 45 minutes plus away. Yeah.
If that. And you think back to even when they're all there, you think back to Uvalde.
Yeah.
There's 20 cops in that freaking hallway and one shooter. You're telling me, look, I don't give a rat's ass. I'm not a cop. I don't have all the gear. I don't have all the training all the time. I spent 6 years in the military. That's it. But if there's a lunatic on the other side of a door
with kids,
with kids,
yeah.
I would think, Simon, you myself and about a handful of others would go in there and say, whatever happens, but he's not killing the kid.
I think the most despicable thing about that whole shooting is the failure to act. Like, I was an animal cop for 5 years, but I was still a cop for 5 years. And my job was picking up sick cats and dogs, enforcing all the animal laws in the Commonwealth in my county. But if I was next to a school and a report came out of a shooter, I was required to go, and attempt to neutralize the threat. And all I can think about is if I failed to act in that instance, I probably would have ate my handgun, because I don't think I'd ever be able to live with myself with that. And the fact that those cops are still alive is kind of
just wasn't there either. It was down at Parkland. That deputy sat in his cruiser the entire time while
and he just got cleared in a criminal trial.
It's like, why?
Because
I mean,
the cops have no duty to protect us constitutionally.
They do,
unfortunately.
Yeah. But if you're not going to do it, allow other people to protect themselves. If you're not going to do it, if all you're going to do is be somebody who extorts money out of people and doesn't protect them when you need to, and that's not the case everywhere. I just want to be very clear. The cops around these areas, for the most part, are.
We've got a very good sheriff in Floyd County, to be honest. I mean,
Franklin County the same.
The more you get to the urban centers, the divide happens between the officers that can and want to do good to the bureaucratic officers. And I've always supported sheriff's units.
Was there a command structure behind that debacle in Texas? I'm sure there was.
Well, they were however, stand down, correct?
However, even in a stand down environment, that is a moral order that you can question.
One of them,
after
his
the fact.
wife was in the building, and he wanted to go forward, and they all shoved him to the back. Like, if my wife was a teacher, and that I'm trying to go and neutralize a shooter in her school, and my other officers are pushing me away, I'm going to shoot those other officers and get to my damn wife and make sure that she's all right.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing about moral instruction, and moral order.
Yeah, she was a teacher that was killed.
But being able to almost ridicule these guys and shame them, that's from really a perspective of hindsight.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily fair. I think everyone here would act differently.
I agree. It's easy to sit back and say, well, if I was there, I mean, I can say if I was in Tora Bora in 2001, I would have got, Bin Laden then and ended it then. But talk is cheap. I would like to think that
inaction is actually cheaper.
Exactly.
And that's the problem I have. We can all be Monday morning quarterbacks, I believe is the expression.
Well, I do know
that was cultural appropriation.
You cultural appropriation the United States right there is what you did.
That was a good one.
It'd be a Monday morning strike or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I know from experience what I would do, because I reacted in a situation that only with buddies' lives, and as much as I care about them, I look at kids as higher esteem. So, I do know that had the situation persisted and I'd been there, I know what I would have done, and I wouldn't have minded it. And I know at the same time, if there had been people who might have questioned, at least that's all you need is one person. But in that situation, parents were jumping the fences and they were tackling
arresting
parents.
the parents.
You know what I mean? Like, I would have had I tell you what.
The biggest thing about, I say being a libertarian, not in the big L sense of the Libertarian Party. I just mean being a libertarian mindset person.
Philosophically.
Philosophically is we teach and we live and we breathe self-responsibility and moral obligation. So,
and duty.
Exactly. I think a lot of, I don't know really where I was going with this, but I think I was trying to wrap it back into our earlier discussion where, like, we have that duty, that honor, that moral obligation. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to take care of others. We're not going to sit idly by. We don't.
But those and the differentiation between that. Oh, that was a bit of a tongue twister.
Ooh, big words there.
Yeah, there's nearly a $20 word.
I know.
Well,
that's the new $1 according to the Federal Reserve.
And their statistical lunatics. Sidebar. The moral obligation that we have is a duty, right? And I can go even further than that. It's what now I'm getting into being radical. Those are our God-given rights.
Absolutely.
A government can't impose upon those.
Right.
So, yeah, kiss my ass.
So, like I said, I was catching up on all your guys' episodes, and I listened to Mike Termott.
Mike Termott, yeah.
Did I say that correctly? You had asked me ahead of time. I had honestly never heard of the guy until you messaged me. But I liked him on the podcast, but I think movements like ours need to focus like harder on the local battle. Yes, I think we can definitely influence like the major national politics, but like you guys had an entire series, The People versus Rocky Mount. We live in a region that I think most people kind of agree with what we have to say, but they still just fall for I need to vote for, the red check or the blue check next to the name.
I think the Libertarian Party, the best we can hope for right now is getting in there and getting the big candidates to talk about a couple of issues that are really important to us. That's why I'm really disappointed in the fact that they really haven't pushed Spike as hard as they should be pushed. I think Spike and Mike, no disrespect to him, I really liked him. I liked his policies. I think he's super intelligent. Spike with the Twitter account and running for president, and Mike as his vice presidential candidate worried about the nuts and the bolts, I think is a beautiful tag team.
I think they make a good team.
But you need somebody that's edgy. And Mike, he's a great guy.
You've got to be coordinated, though. That requires coordination and a little bit of compromise.
Well, because you guys brought up in that episode about how there's the big libertarian conspiracy called the Free State Project up in New Hampshire, where they want to get X amount of libertarians moving into the area so they can take over the state government. I look at it as this way: your town is smaller, your county is smaller. Why is there not a libertarian candidate on the county board of supervisors ballot for Floyd County or for Montgomery County or Blacksburg Town Council, Christiansburg Town Council?
And that's the presence that the Libertarian Party perhaps has to present, because we haven't had that.
Right.
Well, that's what Spike's doing an awful lot with You Are the Power. And I suggest anybody out there, if you listen, you got a couple dollars to throw around. If you're throwing it at this or this, throw it at Spike at You Are the Power. He's going around and he's encouraging local small places to, find those. It's kind of like what the Free State Project is doing, but Spike is doing it, I think, on even a more ground level. Free State Project is focused on the entire state, where Spike's focused, as you said, on localities. And he's a man of his word as well. I'm not just saying that, but he actually came to our small town, our locality, and spoke with people and impressed a lot of people. So he's not, he's a man of his word. He's doing what he's supposed to do. So, if you got a couple of dollars and you can't,
just follow Spike Cohen, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
At the very least.
Yeah, he's on all major platforms.
The message that he presents, along with Mike Zamat, is a freedom message. So following these guys spreads that word. And if that's all you can do it.
Hey, you guys gave him a voice, which is also perfect, because I knew of him from, following libertarian politics for a little bit, but then even if I didn't get the chance to show up and sit there just listening to you guys like have that conversation with him, you prove that he's a real person, not just a lizard person that a Richmond.
He's
north
legit.
Of Richmond.
They are both absolutely legit folks.
People I'd love to see you guys be able to interview. They're kind of in the same vein, like we were talking. If you could get like Thomas Massey on here, fantastically smart guy. If you could get like Nick Freitas from Virginia State delegate on here.
Thomas Massey does follow us on Twitter now. So I've got that going. I could reach out. I would love to get Thomas Massey. I would love, as you said, I'd love to get Nick. I would like to get Jake. Not Jake. Vance from JD
Vance.
Because he wrote Hillbilly Elegy and a lot of and
he got elected to Congress
Senate.
Recently, right?
I'm pretty
Senate?
sure.
Okay,
yeah, and I think it's Senate, and he triggers a lot of progressives. So I'd love to have him on just for that simple fact alone. He caught so much hell, and this is the thing about leftist Appalachia. Most, and in fact, all of leftist Appalachia, they are people who live in cities of Appalachia, like your Parkersburg or your Roanoke's, or you know what I mean, like they
Blacksburg.
But they pretend to care and what's the word I'm looking for?
They project
identify with people of coal country and things like that, and you think you're speaking for them, but at the end of the day, you hate everything that most people in coal country live for, and it's all a projection. You're on here and you're grifting around, but you're not really. I mean, you're just in a suburb in Appalachia, but it's not like Appalachia is rural.
I'm sure if you went to the Blair Mountain back in the day in 21, I think it was, the uprising occurred and the battle occurred. I'm sure if you took all the Appalachian leftists today and put them right in front of the pro-union forces, they'd probably just kill them all because no, you're not us. You're poison, in my opinion. Say what you will. This sounds authoritarian.
Rather.
But they asked a Polish mercenary back in the 60s, what does it feel like to take a human life? And he says, I never know. I've only ever killed communists.
Oh, wow. That was absolutely harsh. I mean, what was the...
I've got no problem if they want to create their little commune, other side of the mountain, and stick to themselves. But history has shown that they're never inclusive to them or seclusive to themselves. They always, there's a nice farm down there. That's going to be mine now.
They have to project.
Yeah. And, I could go on and on about them. And if you're sitting there listening to this for some reason and you're a communist and you're like, oh, they're just a bunch of fascists. No, the best thing that the fucking Nazi leader ever did was shoot him. And, fascism's pretty gay. You're waiting around for your big, strong man to come and lift you. Like, that's pretty fucking gay, bro. Like, authoritarianism of all shades.
Well,
fucking get the rope, in my opinion.
I was corrected by, I can't remember who it was. Again, a very articulate, educated gentleman, and it was talking about not necessarily being fascism, but being totalitarianism.
Yeah.
And I may have stood corrected on that point. I'm not sure if I get into the definition of how you can apply a double tap fascism with maybe the definition of totalitarianism. I think they're very closely linked. And it may be semantics.
Have you seen the political... There's always the political cross chart, but have you seen the one that's the horseshoe where it bends around from the left to the right and basically...
Joins in the middle.
Yeah, the far left and the far right are basically near touching, kind of like a
exactly.
horseshoe itself.
It's like the... What are the straits in Gibraltar? The gates of...
Oh, the... not the...
Gates of Hercules.
Yeah, that's what it was, yeah.
It's Gates of Hercules. I mean, and that's exactly the Mediterranean, right? And it comes back round on itself and the Gates of Hercules.
Yeah.
That's a similar sort of geographical analogy.
Yeah.
It was a little bit deep, but, I'm still compos mentis, Billy. Carry on. Tap, tap.
I mean, this is beautiful. And as you said, we could go on forever and ever about that. I just think that, like you said, there's no understanding of the people who speak on Appalachia from from an urban standpoint, and that's why I like JD Vance. I'd like to get him on here. I'd like to get Homer Hickman on here. I think, or Homer Hickam. Yeah, I would love to get him on here. You know, I mean, that's
first time I found out about him was the movie October Sky. That's Gyllenhaal. I'm enamored with sci-fi stuff and space stuff like that. I love reading about like the history, especially, and seeing the little cold country Appalachians are
NASA trained.
Yeah.
The little cold country Appalachians.
I don't think NASA trained is jumping in a NASA pool without permission. I don't think that's.
Well, I was actually turned upside down in a helicopter frame, fully submerged, and had to get out of that damn thing, punching window out, belts off. You know,
you got to go through people. A helo dunker. I never had the unfortunate privilege.
I did it.
I never
year.
want to do it.
I did it. I at one point I did it every year, but then it became a requirement every 7 minutes.
Oh, Lord.
And the last time I did it was in the Zero Buoyancy Lab in Houston. There's some hooligans letting loose over here. And whilst I was doing this exercise, I happened to be in the pool with the space with a load of astronauts that were training.
Oh wow!
So I got bollocked for what I did. I actually had to go through a whole clearance thing because I'm a UK national. I had to go through all the clearance processes to do it.
Okay.
But to go down and skin dive with the astronauts, which by the way is strictly Theb.
Did they know that you were skin diving with them?
Yeah, they did.
Okay.
I was
saying you didn't just jump in with your birthday suit and go, "Hey, everybody, welcome to the moon."
Howdy doody.
Yeah.
But yeah, they knew I was there. I mean, they were all in their scuba shit and what have you, rebreathers and all that good stuff. And then there's this idiot in a jumpsuit coming down with mask and fins that he managed to procure from the side of Yeah, that was great fun.
Ooh. That's a little
that had some oomph to it.
That's the sound of freedom right there.
There it is. So yeah, NASA train belly. Come on. That's another part of your conspiracy theory.
I've got quite a few conspiracy theories. I would love at some point in time to bring somebody on here that was well versed in flat Earth and talk about that whole kind of deal. And because there is an awful.
I'm poorly versed in all of it, but I can bullshit for hours after watching a 2-second YouTube video.
Like Beyond the Poles, things like that. Admiral Byrd, he's in there. That's beautiful.
I suspect that was a 308.
I think that's his 10.5. 5.56 that he built.
Oh, okay. So it's a short. Oh, nothing. It's nothing.
Sorry. It's a 14-inch.
There you go.
AR,
thank you.
With a brake on the end of it.
There you go.
A loudener.
While we're all sitting here, we'd be remiss if we didn't bring up and discuss. Look, I know nobody sitting here, we're not Trumpers at all. I'm not a big Trump fan. If you think back and look back, I mean, he's the guy that let Fauci run amok.
I mean, he's a New York City Democrat.
He was behind Warp Speed, bam, that stuff. He's also, take the guns first and due process later. Yep. I'm not a big fan of Donald Trump. I have a little bit of hope set aside that if he potentially gets elected, that he will go in there and clean house. But it's hard to, for somebody...
Subtle.
It's hard. It's hard to put any kind of trust in him. But one thing I do know, and one thing I think we can talk about, is what's going on with all these indictments that he's got going on. I mean, not necessarily just because of Trump, but for the sheer fact that this is all historic. I mean, they should be going after Trump for things that they should also be going after Obama for, Bush, Clinton, Biden, war crimes.
And Wilson. Bring Wilson's corpse out here. I need to beat the hell out of it for ruining the world.
Any of them. They should. Donald Trump should be in jail. He should be on trial, not for what he's being on trial for. So I think that's the bigger picture, and that's a bigger message. So what do we make of this? I mean, I'm trying to wrap my head around. I'm trying to figure out whether this is political theater and maybe he's controlled opposition, or we really do find ourselves at a crossroads right now.
I personally don't. I used to take lots of stock in national politics. Honestly, I didn't vote for Trump. I voted Libertarian.
Power to you.
Thank you. I couldn't compromise my morals for, even though it's the most important election of our lifetime.
No,
again.
no fall for that shit.
I will say it is funny watching people on the left absolutely melt down just because he spelled coffee wrong and then refuses to admit that he spelled coffee wrong. Shit like that I loved.
It's infantile. Absolutely infantile.
Oh yeah, it's you got to hit him with grade school rules, honestly. Just like if somebody had Trump say something, instead of attacking him for how he said it, just go like, well, you forgot that I'm rubber, you're glue, and you use playground, rules against him. But I think all these indictments, everything like that, the biggest thing is, well, that's all over the news, right? What isn't on the news, and what are they doing?
Well, there is that. I mean, you've got to look at what one hand is doing as opposed to what the other one is doing. And there's the indictments are one thing, and they're very contrived. I think they are destroying the fabric of the United States in directly as regards to the Department of Justice and the weaponization of that department, along with the FBI. But, the whole thing is a complete sham. But that story seems to come and go as and when it suits the mainstream media. So there's something else going on as well. And what are we not seeing?
Let's call it corporate media. Because I tell you what mainstream media is now is Joe Rogan, it's Tim Pool. That's mainstream media these days. It really is.
Well, I hope they're discounted that way.
Corporate media is who you're talking about.
Yeah.
And look at this guy with this shit-eating grin.
I was like, that's a good transition.
Welcome, brother. Come on.
Don't let me interrupt.
No, you're not interrupting at all. I mean,
just don't fall off the edge, because
we were hoping somebody.
It's a very short fall, at least.
We were hoping somebody would jump on. The whole purpose of coming up here and whipping out the equipment, I was like, all right, we've had Smokey on here many a times before, but he's got such a good libertarian collaboration up here on the mountain tonight. I like some different perspectives, and for the whole fact we've got automatic fire going off in the background, chickens running around, and just.
Oh yeah, I'm sure my rooster loves that. The Loudner on the end of that one. Very
it's very discreet.
Yeah. No, I mean.
But Loudners, by the way, tactically speaking, are just a dreadful concept.
Hey, I mean, you don't forget your ear pro in CQB.
Like I say, if you're going into CQB with a Loudner, your hearing protection better be pretty darn good too. But that's what flashbangs are for. But it's Loudness. I'm not a big fan of.
You brought up a good point. It's like, what else are we missing if they're bringing up all this stuff? And you see, I think it was in D.C., they charged him with insurrection stuff. And essentially they're charging him with trying to overthrow the government.
I saw that they're trying to bring that.
Yet they say, oh, well, you tried to overthrow the government, but we're going to go ahead and let you go on a bond, even though you're a big.
Yeah.
If
it
was that big of a deal, wouldn't you remand him?
The verbiage of insurrection was already in play before it happened. Okay, so be aware of that. That verbiage was in play before it happened. When you use that verbiage, and it's an accepted verbiage on legal constitutional terms, it has some very serious consequences. So now you've got to look at why did that verbiage come about before the incident happened?
The kind of like to what I was saying though, I stopped really paying attention to the national politics, and as you can see, I've got a pretty solid garden. Like the second they start like hitting with stuff, unless it's going to directly affect me, I just kind of put on your guys' podcast. I'll put on the American Revolution podcast. I'll hit up the Seaburn Art and War podcast.
I like those guys.
I'll listen to some music. Speaking of Art and War podcasts,
I didn't want to interrupt, but hello, how's it going?
Yeah, introduce yourself, because this guy right here is a big reason I brought the equipment up here today, because I found out he was going to be showing up. Smokey over here and told me that he's having the cookout and he's coming up from his neck of the woods, and I've been kind of following him on X here a lot lately, and I was like, well, we have another Brit who has the same mindset as Simon. Let's bring them on here together and see if we can blow up the internet, because it's amazing. We're sitting here in the middle of Appalachia, and we've got New Jersey, we've got wherever the hell y'all two are from in England, and
Suffolk, England, Surrey, England.
Yeah.
Then here you got me, who's born and bred Appalachia. I mean, the diversity is here.
Mm-hmm.
The diversity of thought, which is what we should really be kind of emphasizing, but it's all sitting right here. And we've all got the spirit of Appalachia. You know, a lot of people say, oh, you got to be from there. No, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really care where you come from. If you come up here and you hold our values and you assimilate, and we can count on you to squash some nonsense, I don't care. Some of the most based people in Franklin County right now are Hispanic Mexican workers who've been here for 25 years and helped some of our friends build some of the bigger companies.
Right.
You know what I mean? If you want to come here from Mexico and you're based and you're religious and you're family oriented, I don't care. Bring it. I would much rather have a million of you than whatever the hell it is that these progressives are giving us right now.
And that's why it's tolerating not one, but two redcoats.
He said it, not me.
You're out. Well,
I'm not out.
you're equal. You're equal. Well, actually, he's armed.
Yeah.
You're in trouble.
What are you talking about? What do you mean I'm not armed?
There are a lot of guns here.
That's what makes
No, we do not believe in firearms at all. Or whoever's listening that shouldn't be.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's
we're not doing the boating accident.
No.
Okay.
I don't believe in that.
No, absolutely not.
So you made your way here to the United States. I went back and I listened to the last one show that you had released maybe back in March, and you were kind of going over some stuff. It was really interesting. I was listening. I started telling Simon, I was like, all right, I'm listening, and he sounds much more proper than you do. If that makes any kind of sense.
Do I sound
Simon sounds like a heathen. It sounds like he has incorporated the
We
British
talked
accent.
about this on the way over here. My wife said, BR hates feds. It sounds a little bit more like closer towards the city side of England, where Simon sounds like the British redneck. I'm sorry, I don't mean to offend you, brother.
I didn't offend away.
I did grow up like a British redneck. Dude.
Yeah.
Like I was shooting rabbits out in the sticks with like a silent 22, and like
That's the farming country.
Mm.
I was brought up on shotguns.
yeah.
And then progressed into several other weapons.
It's fair, man. The best part was I agreed, knowing all of that already. I was like, yeah, it sounds like it.
No, it's funny, like, because I'm a southerner. You know, they usually say, "Oh yeah,
Southern softy bastard."
yeah,
But
oh yeah." You guys
That's because you're a northern monkey. I get it.
Have you discovered fire yet? Look at this. Oh, scare a northerner. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the opposite over there. The northern people are kind of the rednecks, right?
Well, no, I know enough. I know enough lads from the north, and love them dearly. But there is that north-south divide that some people choose to take seriously, and I think more educated people decide to see the funny side of it and embrace it. That north and south thing. I mean, it exists here, and then when you bring in the Scots into the argument, you're broaching another subject entirely. And, there's so many comical notes that you could talk about north and south, and then you talk about Scots and English, and brace yourself. I mean, it can get ugly quick. But
I'm Irish. We have a beef with the Northern Irish occasionally.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a bit of a blast, I hear.
I'm quarter Scots.
Sorry, was that a low blow?
Yeah. Well, I'm actually quarter Scots.
Okay.
So, and I understand the Irish argument, and based on religious grounds of Protestant and Catholic, that's kind of nonsense, right? So the Crown and the implication of, and this gets, it gets really deep. But you can't, as a rational person, you want to empathise that Ireland should be one island, not the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, with two different entities. I get it.
Yeah.
And I understand the fighting behind it. I understand the grievances, but you're still dealing with a Protestant and Catholic issue that, come on.
I think a lot of it also just comes down to, we like to say the empire always comes home.
Yeah.
So the based, we were talking about this earlier too, the based Irishmen, the based Scots, the few based
Celts.
Welshmen. Yeah. The
Glorious,
even based these
glorious
Brits,
people.
All speaking that nonsense language, and God bless them.
They've all the based ones have left the British Isles, essentially. As an Irishman, I take offense to having to call Ireland part of the British Isles, by the way.
Well, it's not.
Well, it's
Only Northern Ireland, but the Republic of Ireland has always been 100% independent, separate of the you can't call those the British.
Well, I mean,
Isles.
so my wonderful federally produced grade school education over here just refers to it as the British Isles. So,
that's a shame.
yeah, it is. But,
Well, I mean, it's a little bit disrespectful, but you can gloss over it.
yeah.
Don't get your panties in the fucking knot. Don't worry.
Well,
about
hey, like I said, my family's here now.
Yeah.
All the base ones have moved here. It's still the great. I think the Scots-Irish migration to Appalachia was probably one of the best things that's happened in history. I mean, we still like to drink and fight like our ancestors did occasionally.
Well, this country needs it, so
Yeah, we've got
coming.
some energy to expend, and we'll figure out how to do it somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know where I was going with this whole tangent, so continue.
Well, it was that whole Scots-Irish thing,
Yeah.
Appalachia. I mean, there's a number of us around this very ramshackle table. That we are. God, that horrible word, diverse, and that's what happened here.
Well, I want to paint a picture for everybody that's listening right here. So we're sitting at Smokey's homestead, and I have my back to his foundation, to his wall and to his kitchen, and in front of me is going straight up a hillside, nothing but vegetation and growth. To the right of me is a firing range, a makeshift
Obviously.
firing range. Yeah, I mean, this is.
Yeah, sorry for shooting up your yard, Smokey.
Dude, I do it all the time.
Yeah,
Nice.
I mean, there's
It's all right.
there's chickens running around here. I mean, we've got
The brass Jew will come out tomorrow and pick up the brass goblin. I'm not allowed to call him the brass Jew anymore. He'll come through and pick up what hasn't been picked up, and that's good because otherwise I'll mow it and it'll get shot down and my chickens will start eating it. And
Well, we're sitting here with two generations of people that have come here to the United States from places far, far away, and both have managed to find a hatred for our government, and
I think that's just to say
a disgust at the least.
Oh,
Maybe
I-
not hatred, but a disgust.
hatred for me.
Okay.
yeah, I'm not going to say it's unique to the U.S. federal government.
Government in general.
I
But you come
say-
over here and you
but-
see.
The one of the reasons I left the UK was down to the establishment of the European Union, Brussels being an undemocratically elected bureaucracy, and thankfully, Great Britain held on to its currency, which was its saving grace, I may add, and getting out of the euro just showed an independence of spirit. Whether it was a good move at the time, I think if you look at certain economical charts now, the UK is faring way better than Europe. Under this cloud of some false economy. But regardless, giving up sovereignty is something you shouldn't do. Giving up God-given rights is something that was laid open to the US through the Constitution. And those God-given rights, thankfully, have been respected for a few hundred years. Now they're being eroded, and one has to ask why.
Well, I thought
But it doesn't detract from the fact they are still God-given rights, because that's now been acknowledged in the Constitution, which is a great thing, and revolutionary, I think, in its development, and the country should reflect upon that.
I think it was It was you, maybe a week or so ago, you made a post and you said, major thanks to being libertarian. They're kind of the guys who kind of pushed me in this direction. And
while I was in the UK,
thinking about who pushed me in that direction, it was George Bush. Like sending me to Iraq and having me have to deal with that kind of nonsense, coming back and thinking, what the hell did we accomplish?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? What were we doing over there? But it's funny you mentioned him. Because Chip Slate, the guy who runs that whole entire page, he was on our last show, and I wanted him to be up here today.
I was hoping he'd be out here.
The next time you come up, we're going to make this happen. You come up here, and we'll get Chip down or whatever. Because
that's my fault. Because it wasn't until last week I was like, oh hell, I forgot he lives one county over. He's reached out to him.
He's a busy guy and stuff too. I don't think he was available this weekend anyway. We need to find another weekend where it's kind of like nothing else is going on. It's boring. Get you back up here and we'll sit down with him because he's super intelligent. I actually got to me and him try and meet back up. He came down to Boland's hot dog stand a couple weeks ago and we had a few beers and some dogs and just talked about some stuff. And it's funny how everybody comes to this on a different avenue, but I think we can all agree that whatever is going on, we have an opportunity to beat it. You've only been here a few short years, but you kind of see what's going on. And I thought about it, and the show I listened to that you put out, the last one, it was really interesting because you were talking about the culture over there and the wasteland y'all come from, a bunch of redskins. But you were talking about how you have a very hooligan and a very tough and a very violent society, but in the same breath of things, there's this condition to not question something like the Second Amendment, like that we have here. Like you just don't question guns over here. You're just like, oh, we just put it in the hands of them. But you're still hooligans, so it's
well, I think from an Englishman's perspective, the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms and defend yourself under fairly stringent guidelines, and rightly so, has been eroded over centuries in the UK. And to me, that's a tragedy, because what the US re-established was that right.
Well, and responsibility, like
and duty.
Brits don't think they have a responsibility for themselves or their communities or anything else.
Yeah, and how I mean, as an Englishman, I am absolutely shocked and appalled that, because to me, it's a lack of spine.
Oh yeah, well that's what's left the country. Like anyone with a spine has been like, well, you can't be your own person in that country.
You can't stand and voice that opinion.
Well, here's a question that I have for you gentlemen, and it's based entirely on Hollywood and written accounts that I've seen, probably stemming from like the start of the 20th century up to modern time, and it's that you always see, there's the Brit or the man of empire that's the great long distance shot. You get your Alan Quatermains or whatnot, and so it's projected that there was at one point a good civilian rifleman culture in the UK.
Well, it comes from the whole Anglo-Saxon thing of practicing.
Yeah, with your bow on Sundays and stuff.
And from that's kind of in a real long range idea of history. That's where the idea of the citizen rifleman came from in the colonists over here. So it's,
right. The like I read a lot of history, and I know that up until I think it was the French and Indian War, or even up to just after that, the largest standing army that the British kept under empire was to prevent a French invasion of the UK. So at what point do they decide, okay, we've defeated the Luftwaffe for the second time, we can just hand everything back in. We don't need to worry about it ever again.
Well, you're touching on that subject of control, right? So when you control a population and can manipulate the media, and actually that's more now. So why would the feudal lords and barons give up their private armies,
right,
etc.? Whether that was due to a certain civility in politics is a possibility. I suspect that's the case. And then you had the inevitable forming of standing armies, and that's, I suspect, where those rights to defend yourself were eroded. But again, you've got judges that are being lenient on people that are protecting their God-given rights, and I don't think those God-given rights are respected in the UK. They are certainly more respected here because it's constitutional, but that they are certainly being eroded. Much the same as Europe, UK, Australia, Canada. That erosion is it's a slow chisel being constantly beaten. I don't think we should give those rights up at all.
So, something that some of my followers may be or are probably aware of. Anytime I post a photo or video working out here, I always have some rifle, long gun that's a few feet away from me. And someone one day asked me why I always keep my rifle by my side. And I said, it's because you never know when the French and Indians are going to attack. But it's usually at dawn for people that do understand that reference. But I think a lot of that is we don't have to worry about the French and Indians anymore. We don't have to worry about that. I'm in my field and my family's getting attacked. So, yeah, why do you need your rifle there anymore? Because there's no boogeyman sitting in the woods.
Read the Second Amendment.
There is.
There is. No, I agree with you, obviously.
Oh, the boogeyman passed our little tent, our shelter area probably 6 or 7 times a day, back and forth. I know they're looking after us.
The Americans, I think, even Appalachians, we like to think of ourselves as rugged individualists who, we're going to win every fight. But, we, unfortunately, and I'll push this radical thing. I'm only 31, but I always, I'm a millennial. So, of course, I get the shit end of the stick, but I've got back pain. I've got bills to pay. I'm not my generation isn't the root cause of all the issues. And, even if we were, what generation raised us and allowed a bunch of pussies to take over and become fat and soft? I've said this before and I'll say it again, though, even though sure, there's no French and Indians out there, everyone always likes to say, well, if the Chinese land here or the Russians land here, it'll be like Red Dawn. Red Dawn's a fictional movie. If anything's going to happen here, they're going to be wrapped in the American flag. That's my core belief.
And I agree with it. And I mean, and for this show, it gives us a phenomenal perspective because I know, Simon, of course, he is the talent of the show at this point in time. I've been operating the show for a couple years now, and I've been doing what I can do. But it's so nice now to be able to sit back and push a button and wind him up and let him go.
Yeah.
But we got him over here right now, and because this show kind of does touch a lot on what goes on in the UK and what goes on overseas, because Simon does have that kind of perspective. It's still been a long, long time since he's really been there and been involved in the midst of it, but you're not far from living there. So
relatively, I've still been over here for half a decade at this point, which is for me significant.
But you were still there for
Brexit.
Well, that and you can probably speak on the rest of Europe as a whole. Is the migration of folks from Northern Africa and the Middle East, is it as severe and a problem as it's being portrayed in the media or is it, because you were there, I'm just wondering, I mean, are they looking at a caliphate in 100 years, is which a lot of people are saying, for Europe?
It depends on the locale. If people think it's like the homeless problem over here, where just no matter where you go, you see a homeless population. In the UK, you don't see large immigrant populations everywhere. It's some towns are kind of centers for it, like Birmingham, Manchester seem to be
the old industry towns.
Yeah, and a lot of the north, oddly. And London, of course, is more so than ever. But it's not, from my experience, mainly kind of in East Anglia, it wasn't really impactful. It's not something I really noticed, apart from going to maybe London.
So a convenient boogeyman is what you would say, almost.
I mean, the scapegoats are a great thing for governments.
Oh, yeah.
And
it's not, we didn't cause this problem. Those things over there, those people over there.
It's always the other... there's always another to point at. So, Like,
there's always a Frenchman in the woods.
Of course
rural England has never, to my knowledge, been impacted by mass migration.
yeah,
Mhm.
like they just don't oddly
So,
arrive there.
we know that we have some very vibrant Indian and Asian populations throughout various cities in the UK.
Yep.
And they do keep themselves to themselves, which actually goes back to the Dutch model that trying to combine cultures doesn't work.
Mhm.
And that bothers me, because at that point there it's a failed experiment, right? And there are certain countries within the EU that have acknowledged that. So, yeah, we've got to be very careful about our borders in the US and how we control migration. And it's a very sticky subject.
Well, I guess the question then comes as a counter to that is, what can be done at this point? We're the third most populous nation on the planet. We have a porous, essentially southern border. I think the other day
It's wide open.
behind India and China.
Yeah, it's
And
China,
India's
India,
like
and the
triple
US.
us, and China's what, like quadruple.
And India,
or
I
5
think,
times
is
us?
set to surpass the Chinese in next.
Yeah, their
2
populations are immense.
Yeah,
And therein lies the problem. So everything is laid at Western civilization's doorstep. Everything is laid there. But the biggest problems that we have are in the continent of South America, which has been very underestimated, India and China. So I mean, we've got these idiots, John Kerry, not saying things out too loud.
You've never seen a man lose a presidential election so hard and never fucking go away.
Yeah.
Oh, I am a new czar of something today. Like,
I don't know.
Exactly.
Al Gore gives him a run for his money.
But he never
Pig.
he never had a private jet.
Oh no, never. But he
was
won.
my
He won 3
wife's.
Purple Hearts. That's all that
It
matters,
was my
guys.
wife's, yeah. Didn't most of his platoon also over there in Vietnam say they basically wanted to frag him? Like they hated him.
It's a
I
shame
heard-
they didn't.
Yeah. Like,
Wow.
Simon, you didn't say that.
That was from a slightly different English accent. Before I get
Simon, how could you say such a thing? Oh my God.
I'm not throwing you necessarily under the bus.
John Kerry and his consequences have been a disaster for the human race.
Dan, you know what? I've actually got to get a jail-free ticket here. I could strategically play this.
Actually, right now, as we stand at this very moment, we are all dead even because we've got 2 of y'all, we've got 2 of us, but we got a half and half right here, correct?
There we go.
Yeah.
Dead even.
So which side? I mean, I guess you're taking the British side. So Brandon, you and I are.
Depends on what depends.
Well,
It does.
I think you got to stick with your husband on this
I have
one.
a choice because
No,
I'm
she's
American. I can
freedom
make-
of
I
thought.
can make a choice.
Carry on.
The whole border thing I was going to say real quick was just that, like, I have the easy job. I can question things. I don't have any solutions on what to do with that at this point. Like, I think the most mind-boggling thing for me was finding out that my uncle worked for whatever Customs and Border Patrol used to be. I think it was the INS or something back in the day. And he lived in Southwest Nebraska. And I asked him, why are you here and not in Texas? Because I catch more people in Nebraska on farms than I ever would at the southern border, because I'll bring out an entire truckload of them today and there'll be 5 truckloads worth of them tomorrow.
You bring up really interesting.
And that was in the
point, too.
90s.
Yeah. Well, and shout out to our buddy Amos Denton, Blackwater Building and Custom Woodworking. Good friend of ours, good friend of the show, Brett. You've met him many a times. He talks about going to West Texas. He's got a buddy out there that, they're in a town right off of I-10 that kind of getting close to the panhandle up there. And he essentially himself, his friend owns a 30,000 acre ranch. I mean, his ranch is basically the size of Franklin County. It's definitely the size of Floyd County. And that's all out there. But there's only about 1,300 people in the entire county. So they just take turns being the judge and the sheriff. And this guy's been the judge before. He's like the head EMT. But, they talk about, coming across bones and bodies out there in the desert. And it's kind of a rare thing for people that are trying to come through here on an illegal fashion, for the most part, they're all being funneled into one area because you really can't go through those deserts and survive. It is not survivable. So really, it is the influx is all. It's all there, and it's all being sensationalized, and it's all being used politically, I think, to scare us quite a bit. I mean, I know there are issues with it, but like I said, they're not just coming across the border all willy-nilly. That is difficult. It is not easy. They're all going to specific spots.
Yeah, and they're all, from my understanding, from my very limited understanding, I should say.
It's gonna be loud. What a quote.
Yeah.
He's right.
Yeah, it was pretty loud.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
A lot of those points are controlled by, the coyotes at least work directly for, various cartel organizations down there, which, once again, we have Uncle Sam to thank for. As I believe it was Mitch Hedberg that said, I would like to congratulate drugs for winning the war on drugs.
Hell yeah, brother.
Wow. Touche. That's a whopper, right?
As an Appalachian, I'd also like to say congratulations to poverty for winning the war on poverty.
Uncle Sam just getting his ass handed to him. Holy shit.
I've read a lot of for some reason, the whole war on drugs is fascinating to me. Just the logistics behind it, finding out like, oh yes, the CIA flew crack or cocaine into the United States for Pablo Escobar so that we could transport firearms down to anti-communist movements in Central America. And I actually believe it was Slade on Seaburn that said it the other week. He said, there's this wonderful history of the United States government and the CIA going into all these third world countries and toppling their dictators or their leaders and setting up these democracies. But we never stopped to go, hey, do you want this? No, we're just going to give it to you. And for some reason, to me, that's like the most fascinatingly horrifying thing ever.
Yeah, like, hey, have some democracy at gunpoint.
Yeah.
Thank you, I think.
Yeah.
Do we need to be holding this? What's happening here, guys?
Well, one of us can do it. Look, to finish painting the picture with my back to the wall here, the shooting range to the right of me, we just got all of our mics set up on a makeshift wooden sawhorse.
A very bendy 2x4.
And connected to a long 2x4.
This is the Appalachian studio.
Yeah.
Sure.
As redneck as it possibly gets.
It's beautiful. You know what? If it works, it is.
Exactly.
I'm telling you, we adapt and we overcome. We find ways to make it happen in places that don't always make a lot of sense, but that's what makes us unique. That's what makes us, different. We're out here. But like we were saying, the immigration and stuff, it's like they're trying, they're trying to replace the birth rate that's going down because you've got, half the country.
Yeah,
who is completely fine with castrating their children and aborting their children, and that's a lot of the working class. They need immigrants in this country. I think we spoke about the idea that during COVID, those totalitarian lockdowns that we suffered through, that if it weren't for the drug trade in this country and the cartels, that our economy might have completely went in the gutter, because that's the one thing that was still. And we talk about, demonization and stuff. And look, I'll be the first to say there's probably a lot of shady stuff going on with the cartels in Mexico. Mm-hmm. But I do know two things. I know, number one, not nearly as shady and as corrupted and as disgusting as what the U.S. government. And number two, at the least, as far as I know, they have sense enough to make sure that the touristy attractions and places down there are completely safe. They want that money coming to those towns because they operate them. So I'm sitting there thinking, they're actually protecting you more, the cartels in Mexico, than you're getting from government-appointed police here in the States, because they have no obligation to do it. At least the cartels are like, yeah, our obligation is you're coming here and spending money. So if you mess with tourists, we're going to make sure your entire family. So, I mean, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but what makes more sense?
I mean, you have to bribe Mexican police pretty often to get your dumb drunk friends out. Yeah. And they got locked up for shit, being a regular drunk. And then like, hey, pay me.
Well, that's back. I don't know. I can't speak for today, but from my reading, the back in the day, is if you were a Mexican police officer, it was understood that 2/3 of your income came from bribes.
Yeah,
And it was just
it's
that
like
was
tips.
how it. Yeah,
It's just
That's
how
what
it
it was.
works.
It was that you can come to court and pay your traffic fine there, or you can pay me, and you won't have a traffic fine. And most people, here's 90 pesos because it's like $9.
I think yeah.
Or 9 cents.
Always
I don't
worth
know.
it. People always carry bribe money in Egypt, in Mexico, in any dodgy place. South America always have bribe money.
Well,
parts of New York City,
you can play
parts of Roanoke.
You can play that game, but I've gone through.
You spent a lot of time with MI6. What are your experiences of Mexico and some of these?
Well, I've had to go through Brownsville, through Matamoros.
Were you a mule?
I was not a mule. I was going the other way.
Okay. So you were bringing the guns down to Mexico is what you're saying? Because I know the Mexicans are as crazy about guns as we are about the coke coming north.
Well, I came through the old square and Matamoros. It was, very Spanish, colonial, and the square. And
I'd love to see it. I've seen photos of it.
It's
beautiful looking.
It's superb.
Yeah.
But on every corner, there were a couple of Mexican guys, fully kitted out.
In Mexico?
In Mexico. Fully kitted out, battle rattle, and their faces completely covered.
Yeah.
On every corner going through the main square in Matamoros. And we had to go through with armed guards. So we were whizzed through in a convoy to the heliport that was south of Matamoros. We're coming through to the Matamoros and their army or whatever, National Guard, whatever it may be. They were there. They ushered into the heliport. Off we went, wherever we went further south. I can't remember the name of the place. But I did spend some time there coming off. And I know I've told this story already. But the guy at the hotel, Mexican national, trying to be fluent in English, he practiced some of his English with me. So I'm having a chat with him, and I said, well, it's broad daylight now. I've just got off a ship for 5 or 6 weeks. It's completely dry. I may not necessarily want to have a beer in your bar, but we have been told, do not leave the hotel premises under any circumstances. And that was it. So I thought, okay, those are the rules, but what do you think about that? He goes, no problem. He goes, 5 or 6 months ago, I would have agreed with you.
I know where this is going.
You know?
I heard the story. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember.
And he swung and he goes, well, we had 5 cartels in this town that were absolutely brutal. And now there is only one, and everything is running really smoothly. And I went, so hang about. I'm okay to go in a town now that is run by the most ruthless cartel, and I should consider myself safe. So I went out.
Hey, there you go, man. The interesting thing, speaking of like to the guys that you saw in the corner with the full battle rattle and with all the clavas on, so that the identities were hidden, is a lot of people don't know this, but that's because of the Zetas cartel, which was a Mexican special forces unit that was trained entirely by the United States military to conduct counter narcotic operations. But we were paying them the equivalent of like $100 a month in the Gulf.
That's a cheap proxy war.
That's
just good business.
I think that was per $100 a month, and that was the equivalent to like their colonel or whatever his name was. And I believe it was the Gulf Coast cartel that went to them. And they're paying you $100 a month. How about we pay you $500 a day?
Oh,
and the entire unit basically just like they did all right, take that flag patch off, and I am now the security for this group. And then they're the ones that really made the drug war in Mexico. They're the ones that started cutting people's heads off and leaving them in the highways and stuff. And that's what led up to that increase
escalation.
But it was the School of Americas that trained them all how to do it.
The cartels, without any question, run that country.
Oh, absolutely. It's a narco state.
Yeah.
But, Uncle Sam won't admit it. And neither will Mexico City.
Is the CIA part of it?
People,
probably.
If you're listening to this show and you're listening to this conversation and you're on the fence about it, just think, what did more? Pablo Escobar from Medellin and Miami, or Democrats for Detroit and Chicago or San Francisco?
There's still paintings of Pablo Escobar, the saint, in parts of Medellin because they believe he built them apartment complexes and schools. I mean, the man was a ruthless narco terrorist at the very end, and from my understanding,
people loved him
insane.
for it.
But at the same time, you just give out, here, I have too much cash. Here you go. I'm pretty certain I had neighbors growing up that they were all Colombian. I'm pretty certain they all came here by finding a bundle of cash or a burial site of cash.
Well, there are still random stories to this day to where people will be down in Colombia and Medellin or either other parts, and they'll have an apartment or whatever, and they'll go through and start busting out the walls to renovate
just full
it,
of cash,
and they'll find just full of cash right there, from that time. He had so much of it.
So my neighbors growing up, it was there was a bunch of them that all kind of came here at the same time. There was one guy, this nice gentleman named Jorge, he's an electrician. He's kind of like their lead. Sorry, Jorge.
Good Lord.
It's picking up just over here on this. I'm watching it every time.
So I remember one time we're sitting there, we're having a beer, we're having a little afternoon party, and the subject just kept them coming here, and I go, so how did y'all get here? So what did Jorge sponsor y'all? And they go, talk about it. And that's where it firmly was in my mind. They found a bunch of Escobar cash or something like that, and we're like, oh, we're leaving today.
That's how that rolls.
All right. We're going to get ready to get out of here because I've been going for a minute. Everybody's ready to hang out and stuff. But I wanted to know from you, since you joined us late, you didn't get a chance to talk amongst it as much. So, like, for you, what is your view of America since you've been here? Because I know you've been in a couple of different places. Now you've seen Appalachia. So I'm just kind of curious of that progression and your thoughts on it.
On, like, the land of America or the American experience? Or
a little bit of both. Just kind of your thoughts on the topography. And, what your experience has been since coming here.
Would you like me to halt the troops?
Yeah.
Hold!
Oh, they're good.
Thank you.
They're good.
Continue, sir.
They don't need this. Yeah, they're probably all right. It's been a lot of that. That's a pretty good summary, to be honest. No, I feel like they're all waiting on me now.
No, you don't worry about it.
All right.
Don't worry about them.
How to sum up? So I lived in the desert for most of my time so far. I moved there because it was the opposite of England. I hate the rain, I hate the winter and all that. I wanted blue skies and palm trees and wilderness, like able to go out in the mountains, able to go out and shoot wherever, and I got, my fill of that. Loved exploring the desert, being a desert rat. That was very me. But then I got an opportunity out here, and I was like, well, shit, it's better for homesteading. It's more like kind of a self-reliant culture out there. Arizona was sort of slipping into that, flooded with Californian sort of stage, and a lot of people that just didn't get it.
Simon's people.
Far from it.
I beg to differ.
Yeah, so I was like, I was the Brit living in Arizona going like, hey, go home, go back to your fucking state.
Go back to where you came from.
Yeah, exactly. But and now I feel like I'm doing that to Appalachians because there's like, it's kind of the worst kept secret these days. A lot of people are starting to move down here now, sort of like a late migration after the initial COVID stuff. So I don't know. It's been really interesting to be here during that sort of cultural shift. It's probably like the biggest migration of Americans probably ever, right? Like even there's more people in this country now than ever before. And people are voting with their feet how they want to live their lifestyle. And that's why a lot of people come to Appalachia. Some people who get it, and a lot of people who don't.
I think a lot of that is the ones that don't are moving here they came here for school, the college towns. Like, look at Blacksburg over the hill. Look at
Boone, North Carolina, Asheville, North Carolina.
And if you point out a major university in the United States, in Appalachia specifically, you'll see a very blue dot and a very big sea of red, and that tells you all you really need to know. Like, oh, what's the one running theme here? Oh, a major university. I don't understand why I can go to college in another state and be able to vote as someone that lives in theory in that state, just because I'm there for 4 months out of the year and, just getting drunk and high at the college campus. Like, no, fine. If you want to vote here, send your vote back to the town that you're living in. Well, not
Pay your taxes here.
I don't agree with paying taxes.
Well, no, I know. I'm being very contentious when I say that.
They can pay all the taxes.
Uh-huh.
If we're allowed to pay none of them, then I'd be fine with that.
You know? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can keep your cities. We'll take the hills.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever.
Well, I'd like to think that today has been an absolute success. I think bringing everybody together up here and everybody hanging out at the lake and having a good time and conversing and taking some ideas, back home.
I was very worried that everyone was going to back out at the last second and I'd have all this food that I bought at the store and be like, oh, goody, this happened again.
Well, with these things, you always have to wonder, is everyone going to be, like, sociable and able to plug in and, like, make some decent connections, or is everyone going to be,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of an oddity?
Oh, yeah.
A little bit terminally online.
Yeah.
Put your guard up.
Yeah, that's the best thing. I mean, I know I've checked my phone a couple times since we started recording, but it's just because the group of guys that were there earlier keep blowing me up talking about how they can't wait to be able to, do it again. They wish they could have come up tonight, but, they all have little kids and stuff, so it's understandable for them.
And it's a big weekend. We know the commitment here. It's all about family, right?
Yeah, we've got an awful lot going on the rest of the weekend. I've got hanging out with all my buddies, Josh Grace and his terrible music, who usually he brings in, our show and ends our show. And I honestly, for everybody who listens, I wish I could do better for you, but he's free.
And we love him.
Oh.
Good job.
Easy with the
Love
wee
is a
part.
word others have been used.
I don't hear a mouse around here. I don't know about the wee part. I got to see him and hang out with him tomorrow. And by the way, for our little hangout tomorrow, it's our fantasy football draft. We did a show about this about 2 years ago, and I don't really care, and I don't pay attention to football really as much anymore. I just go off the numbers and the statistics to do my thing, but it's more of a reunion. We all hang out and catch back up. So this has been a good preamble to what's going on here tomorrow, and I've enjoyed meeting everybody up here today and having some good conversations, Simon. I think I think we outdid ourselves.
Well, I think I surprised you, bearing in mind I had a few issues earlier.
But between Claytor Lake and here, I think Simon was in and out of consciousness, and I didn't know if we'd be able to pick him up for a good
He
show.
pulled up, and I saw you sitting on the back of the tailgate. I was like, oh, no, is Simon going to make it?
Yeah. It was a psychological issue.
Yeah.
I call it mental stress, and I'm going to leave it at that.
I think certainly we need to get back together here at some point in time, and I'm hoping maybe in the Twitter Spaces at the least here in the next couple of weeks with Spike and Chip and a couple of those guys, and kind of dive more deeper into what a free state of Appalachia looks like, and in conjunction with maybe a peaceful divorce throughout the entire country, because I really don't think it can be a state by you're not going to have 50 independent countries. There's going to be places
10,000
that
Liechtensteins
fold together. Like there's no reason for Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina not to band together. Let's use those ports. Let's use that agriculture, those passages through the mountain. You know what I mean? Good conversation. So for anybody out there that's listening to this, if you want to help support us at patreon.com/GetOnTap, just $3 a freaking month. You really helping us with the equipment, things like that. Me and Simon are trying to maybe fly out to Los Angeles here in the next couple of weeks. Maybe that would help us out. We'll talk about that.
San Diego, please say San Diego.
In the near future, we'll talk about that here soon. I can't talk about it now, but we will. But for having us up here today and getting us all together, and you jumping on here and hanging out with us here, thank y'all very much.
Thank you guys for coming. If y'all didn't show up, then none of this would have been happening, and I would have been just cutting wood on my farm all day.
Where can they
by
find?
hand.
Where can they find y'all on the internet if they want to keep in touch with y'all?
Oh, pointing at me.
Yeah.
So you can listen to me ramble about gun culture with a few other people on the Art and War podcast, which is on Spotify and a bunch of other places, and I'm on Twitter or X, whatever we're calling it now, at BR Hates and Instagram br.the.anarch for anyone who's on those.
You can find me on I believe it's X at my tag there is at Appalachistani. On Instagram it is State of Appalachia or Smokey the Appalachistani. You could also look up in conjunction with the Anarch Substack, you can look up Smokey's Fireside Rants, where occasionally I put out a halfway decent article in my opinion. Others might have said different things. Or you can follow my wife, who does a lot of the homesteading stuff at Decker's Ridge Homestead.
Yeah, keep up with all that stuff and support your local people as much as you possibly can. Support these guys here. Go give them a follow. It's always good content, and we're always sharing with each other. For us, you can get Simon's now got his X up or Twitter or whatever at Simon on Tap. He's going to start getting involved a little bit more, I hope, especially when these spaces start coming around. We get the guys on here, and for us, it's at Get on Tap. The Appalachian Podcast on Twitter, Appalachian Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, all that kind of good stuff. So thank everybody for hanging out. Patreon.com/Get on Tap for subscribers. And let's do it.
Love you, Billy.
Appreciate it. I want to get you back.
Have a wonderful Labor Day weekend.
Yes.
Have a great Labor Day weekend, everyone.
Later, people.
Signal while changing lanes. They pulled him over, found her cocaine. She said, I love you. Yes, I love you forevermore. If you tell that cocaine load is yours. He spent time locked up. She ran around. Everyone knew it. Small country town. While he lay rotten, Lord, she was blowing on his door. And the day they released him, well, he had nowhere to go. Lord, and it's ashes to ashes, and you know it's dust to dust. Just another low down woman that a man can't trust. They released him. No one was there. Had she forgotten? Did she still care? He called up her mama, Lord, and these words he heard her cry. Lord, that no good daughter of mine spend all your money on cocaine, overdosed and died. Lord, it's ashes to ashes, and you know it's dust to dust. Just another low down woman that a man can't trust. because I'm sitting on